Yes, madam.
Hmm?
Please, about the videos you sent yesterday.
Yes.
Please, I would love maybe next time you want to send such, maybe you make it earlier so that maybe we have more time to study it.
Okay.
That's my observation for now.
Okay. That's cool. That's accepted. So the reason why those videos were sent yesterday because they are very, very short videos. All of them all together do not reach 30 minutes. All the videos, I don't even think they're up to 20 minutes. So some are 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, I think at most. So, all right. All right. So are you trying to say you've not finished watching the video? Is that why you're trying to communicate?
No, not really, madam.
Okay. Mercy said, I agree. I saw the email late this morning. Okay, so let's add that one to the ground rules. Please make your email very, very accessible. Always be checking your emails. It's very important for you to, we're going to be communicating a lot by emails. All your assignments are going to be submitted by emails. So you're going to be using emails to communicate. If you have questions, you can either send them by email or send them by on the WhatsApp group. So please make your emails very accessible. All right. All right. Okay, so let's do a bit of question and answer. So I'll just ask a random question, actually some random questions, and I want to hear you guys respond. By the way, part of your grading for the classes is based on your participation. Nobody's allowed to be mute. The class is small in number deliberately so that it can be interactive. So nobody's allowed to be mute. Your participation is very important. Submitting your assignments in time and completely, very important. Part of what you benefit by being completely participative is that at some point in time, we'll have some observers just waltz into the class and they would watch you. Then at some other point in time, probably close to the end of the program, some companies could reach out, which they've been doing that for like previous sessions, previous cohorts. So they could reach out and say they want someone or two people or something out of our set of students that would work with them on projects. They need to rely solely on me and your assignments and basically how you've interacted in class. So all those things will influence whether I'll be able to recommend you or not. So that's it. Now, first question. Who can tell me what UX design is? In your own words, not any definition. Just tell me what you think these whole sessions are about. What you think UX design is. Linda, if you're trying to talk, I can't hear you at all.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, yes.
Okay, so UX design is how people feel and how they I would say experience, but then that's the X in it, so I can't use that word. But it's how people react, behave towards a product, whether it's a physical product or an application. So it's trying to shape how people behave or how people see or view your product
Okay.
correctly.
Okay. I like that. One more person. Anybody else? Okay, let me ask another question. Can someone break down the UX design process for me? Let's do this within 5 minutes though. So you guys should participate, you don't have to be all right. You may just remember one or two. So feel free to just participate.
Okay, madam. The US design process, I guess start with the user research.
Okay.
Then it moves to user personal and user flows.
Okay.
Then wireframings and prototypes.
Okay.
Then I guess the last should be the testing, the product testing.
Okay. 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 Does someone else have something to say? We are a number of us in this class, so someone raise their hand. Obafemi, feel free. Yes.
Okay. Um. Good morning, Mrs. Grace.
Please just call me Grace. So please don't go call me Madam or Mrs. Grace or any of all those kind of things. Grace is fine. Thank you.
Grace, just to add to what Deji has said, was it
Uh-huh.
Deji that answered that? Um,
Yes, it was Deji.
Design process doesn't really ends at user testing. It's a cycle, so it continues. So reiteration is like part of like the design process.
Okay.
So that is what I want to add.
Okay. 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 I like that. Okay. Cool. Okay. Anybody else? So this part is very, very
Okay.
important. So I want to hear it. Yes. Yes. Mercy, go on.
Okay. The UX design process involves learning about the audience, especially what your audience will want or what the users actually want. You put yourself in their position, and then try to find out this is a product. What the expectations of the audience, and then identifying the user's need. If you know the expectations, then you know what they actually want from that product. And
Okay.
also you generating ideas on how to form your design based on their expectations or based on their needs, and then prototyping, testing prototyping, like turning the ideas into um, reality before you test. And of course, like the last speaker said, the testing, it goes over and over again, because once there's a change or once there is something new, you keep updating and upgrading.
I like that. Okay. That's really good. That's really good. Anybody else?
Okay.
Khalid, you are here. Yes. Yes. Who's speaking?
Okay. For me, I think the UX process, I don't, the UX process is all about, I think the first is we learning about the audience. And the second is identifying the problems the audience or the user has. Then we go over to the area of generation of ideas, which is the ideation.
Okay.
Then we'll go into turning those ideas into concrete examples, which is prototyping. Then lastly, we'll talk about evaluating the design, which is the testing of it.
Okay. 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 That is really cool. I like that. Okay. Anybody else before we go on? Okay, nobody else. All right. So I like how you guys have defined UX design. I like how you guys have broken down the process. So now I want you guys to note. In short, I know you guys have heard what I'm about to say because you watched the video, the one that was a little bit lengthy about the UX design process. So what I want to say now is you should note that different people or different organizations, different teams would break down the UX design process in different ways. The reason is because people have learned or teams have learned to modify the acceptable processes in such a way that it will suit their company, suit their product, suit their team. Now, there are different ways, there are different acceptable ones. Two very popular ways they break down the design process. Please, if you do not have a pen and a paper right now, go and fetch one. Very important. So two very important, popular ways they break down the process are, the first one is called design thinking. Design thinking is one. The second one is double diamond. Now, we'll not go into the in-depth of this book, of these two of them, but I want you guys to go ahead and do a research on this. So that's probably going to be like your first assignment. So I want to hear something. I want you guys to submit something on these two that I mentioned. But let me quickly do a run through. Design thinking, either design thinking or double diamond, they're actually iterative process, like you guys have said earlier. Now, design thinking breaks it down into 5 phases. The first one, they call it empathize. The second one is called define. The third one is called ideate. The fourth one is called prototype. And the fifth one is called test. So empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So that's 5 of them. Now, I mentioned this because you guys have actually covered a lot of this in the question I asked you guys. Empathize is basically where you put yourself in the shoes of the user and you talk to them. So you talk to them, you find out their pain points, you do research on them, whether you're doing this research by document analysis or you're doing interviews with them, whether individual interviews or group interviews, then surveys, whatever form of research you're doing in that phase, according to the design thinking, is called empathize. The second one, which they call define, is where you've gone to the field, you've spoken to the users, you've come back, now you have a lot of data. It's now time for you to break down this data and analyze all the data you have. And then at the end of that process, you do what we call defining the problem. So you now define that problem in such a way that it is very clear. The problem statement is very clear and say, okay, this is exactly the problem we're trying to solve. So in your mind, before you went out for your research, you would have had assumptions. You would have had stuff on your mind, like, okay, maybe what we are trying to solve is this problem. But after you go out and you talk to users, you might find out, oh, you thought the problem was this. But the problem is not really, it's not really what you thought, but the problem is something else. Or maybe even if it is the same problem, but it's been modified in such a way that it is speaking from the user's point of view. So when you come back, that process is called defining the problem. So when they say define, they're talking about the problem. So empathize with the user, that's empathize. Define is define the problem. Now the next stage is called ideate. Ideate is where you have, you've already known the problem you're trying to solve. Now you start sitting down and say, okay, let us try to come up with solutions, or let's try to come up with some ideas, basically. So here is where you start. There are different ways of doing this. So one of the popular ones is called brainstorming, which is the one you'll be using in this session. We'll be doing team brainstorming. So brainstorming is one of the ways you ideate. The other ones they call brainwrite. There's one they call worst possible idea. There is Scamper. There are actually a lot of ideation techniques, but one of the most popular is brainstorming. Brainstorming is where either you yourself individually or with other team members, you start coming up with some ideas and just start noting it down. As it comes, you just note it down. This is not where you start analyzing, okay, so maybe this idea, this is how it work. No, just note it down, just write it down. It's very simple. Actually, the UX design process could be simple or could be complex, depending on how you look at it. I like to look at it from the simple point of view. So it could be simple because they're just very simple processes that you follow to achieve a result. So the next one then is what we call prototype. So now that you have ideas, you're like, okay, so whether within your team, there's a process we call voting. There's something we call voting. So where you vote on maybe the ideas you want to work on. So if you voted on the idea you want to work on, which is in the ideation stage, you now come to prototype and say, okay, it's time for us to put this to paper or start have something. So here is where you would go ahead to either paper sketch, which is something we'll touch on a bit today. So you paper sketch, where you just take a paper, literally take a paper and use a pencil or a pen and sketch. So you just sketch that idea. So for instance, let me find so one problem that boggles me all the time, despite so many solutions out there, is food. So when I want to eat, when I'm hungry, I just want food. But the problem is, if I go online to go and order food, the food will probably not arrive until 45 minutes or 1 hour later. Now, but it was when I was hungry, I ordered the food. So that's a problem. Now, that is me as a user saying, I have this problem. So if a UX designer, maybe you, if I was a client now and I'm saying, this is a problem I think I want to make money off. I want to build a solution so that I can make some money. So I want you, designer, to just design something for me. It's you and the designer, you really want to say, okay, pause a bit. let's go and validate your assumption. Let's see if other people are having the same problem that you think is a real problem before you go ahead and burn your money and you're actually solving nothing you're actually solving a problem that nobody else has. So that is where empathize comes in. So you now go out and go and get actual participants to talk to. Now, let's say after doing all the processes, I come to prototype and then I want to now come up with sketches. So in the end, maybe based on my research, I found out, okay, one idea could be maybe people in the morning, since you know you're going to eat that day, right? Instead of waiting till it is lunchtime, how about maybe one idea I wrote down is, okay, schedule order. So something like that. Schedule order could have been one of the ideas me and my team will have come up with, or me alone. So under brainstorming, while I was brainstorming in the ideation phase, so I can note down scheduler. So maybe if that was one of the ideas, let's imagine there were a lot of ideas. I don't want to think too much about it. So let's imagine there were a lot of ideas. Now I would say, in the prototype, it's time for me to now think about the process. Okay, so how would a user schedule an order? What's that process? So maybe that's where what we call user flows come in. So, let me talk about user journey first. That's where the user journey comes in. So user journey is where you now say, okay, the user would first do this, then that, then that, then that. So you write down those steps, then you now break it down into an actual flow of screen. So there's a slight difference between user journey and user flows. I want you guys to do a research on that as well. Now, but in summary, the difference between both of them is just the fact that user journey is more general. It's not granular, unlike user flow. User flow is specific as per screen to screen, how the user will actually interact throughout the whole application. So that's the prototype. Then the last phase under the design thinking is called test. So test is what it is. It's just basically testing your idea. So on that test, we have different styles of actually testing. One of the very popular one is called usability testing. So usability testing is where you test whether, okay, this thing with prototypes, this thing with sketch, is it even going to solve the problem? So maybe you go back to the same users if you had kept their contact after you research with them in the beginning. So here is where you now say, okay, let me try to test this. So one very quick way I test from my own experience is right there while I sketched it. I could just show it to my husband or show it to a neighbor or show it to somebody on the street, depending if they fall within the kind of user group. So I would see their interaction, or I'll see their expression while they are looking at the screen. The paper sketch. So is it something that, does it connote the real meaning that I want it to connote? So I would look at them, okay, so while they are looking at the very first screen, I'll ask them, what do you think will happen when you go to the next screen? So I'll hear what they say. If they say what I actually had on the next screen, I'll say, okay. But if it is not what I also thought, I would still say, okay, but I would note it down. Ideally, you would be recording this session. Either you have somebody else that's taking notes, because you shouldn't be taking notes and be talking to a participant at the same time. Now, this is some of the tips for your research. So for your testing or research. So I'll basically just note these points down, and then I'll now go back, and this is where iteration comes in. So based on what people said while I'm testing, I could easily do an iteration. Now, this is where we would say the UX design process is not linear, or would say it is iterative. It is iterative because it's not like the first thing, empathize, then the very next thing you must do is what's it called, define. Then after you must do the next thing, then this. No. The process is very iterative and a little bit fluid, because while you're talking to users, as in the very first time you're talking to users, ideas could start coming up. When ideas start coming up, it means that you have jumped from empathize and you have gone to ideation. So if ideas start coming up, you just start noting it down. So it's very fluid based on the project you're working on, based on the kind of users you are speaking to. It's fluid on a whole lot of levels. So if that's the case, you note it down, then you can be like, in short, there are some times you'll be talking to users and you just start getting like literal visual representation. So you just quickly sketch something. And then you can be like, is this like what you mean? So do you see what just happened there? You could have literally gone from empathize to prototype. and then you're even testing on the spot. So some of this is very, very fluid. So that's where we say it's non-linear, and then you can come back from like maybe the fourth process back to the first process and back and forth. So you could even be prototyping and realize that, oh, something, a part of the research was probably not very complete, or there's an extra question has popped up. So you need to talk back to the user. So in that case, you would return to your users and then try to do a little bit more research. So that is about the design thinking process. Now for Double Diamond has four, four stages or four processes. Just like the design thinking, it is also non-linear. It's also an iterative process. Now, the way Double Diamond broke it, so it broke it down into the first one being discover, the second one being define, the third one being develop, and the fourth one being deliver. So those are the four. So let me say it again: discover, define, develop, deliver. So it's similar, it's actually very similar. So discover is basically your discovery stage. That's where you would be doing your, your research. That's where you would talk to users. That's where you're trying to discover what exactly are we trying to solve. So that's all that is in the discovery stage. So this is where you actually do some what they call stakeholder driven research. Stakeholder meaning users, basically users, and not just users, actually not just people that will use your solution in the end, but even stakeholders such as managers in the company or in the team, such as maybe even developers, depending on what you're trying to research. Even CEO, the CEO is part of your stakeholder, because if he doesn't believe in what you're solving, or if you don't find a way to align business goals with user needs, there's a clash. So there is where you do stuff like stakeholder research, and you have other research methods like competitor analysis, all those kind of things, basic document analysis, like I mentioned earlier. So that's what happens there. Also, the empathize we mentioned earlier during the design thinking also comes up here. Here is where you have empathy. You have a lot of user empathy, and you show that by interviews, like we said earlier as well. Interviews, you have surveys, and so on and so forth. Okay, now the define part is, again, it's similar to defining the problem. So you see what you see that they are very, very similar. The design thinking and Double Diamond, they're quite similar. So define is where you define the problem, you gain insights. So based on your research, you now try to bring down, okay, these were my findings. I know in one of the videos, I talked about the difference between findings and insights. So these were what I found out from the field, but these are the insights we're bringing out from this finding. So here is where you define your problem. And in this way, what you do here is you use, again, you could do this in teams, where either you're doing it in team or even individually. You have what we call affinity diagram, which is what we're going to be using. We'll be using affinity diagrams. And then we have what we call how might we. So how might we way of defining your problem is something I actually sent yesterday. I hope you guys watched that particular video. So how might we problem statement is just basically you, how do I say this? It's basically you breaking down the whole research and bringing it into one problem statement. So saying that, okay, how might we, so let me use the example I was mentioning earlier, the food problem. So maybe after my whole research, maybe I I interviewed 4 users. I'm giving an example. Let's say I interviewed 4 users, and let's say I sent an online survey to 30 users. So if I did that, afterwards, I'll come down and say, okay, it's time for me to define this problem. So I've spoken to a lot of people. I've done my affinity diagram, which I'll show you an example of very soon. I've done my affinity diagram. Now, what exactly would I say I'm trying to solve? So the problem could have been, how might we solve the problem of delayed food orders? That's something that just came to my head. So maybe that's the problem I'm trying to solve. How might we solve the problem of delayed food orders? But I can't just come up with that statement of solve the problem of delayed food orders without my research? What if other people don't have problem with delayed food orders? What if it's just one person? So that's where your definition of the problem is solely based on your research. Now, develop, that is the third phase of double diamond. Develop is basically where is the equivalent of ideation, actually. It's the equivalent of ideation, and this is where you develop possible solutions through iteration. So here's where you sketch, like we said earlier on, maybe you do some wireframing, and then you go out and quickly test. So what I really like about double diamond is that you don't wait till the last point before you say it's time to test. So right there, while you're developing, you quickly test, then you iterate. You test, you iterate. So here we have for this idea generation, it's where you come up with solutions and then you're kind of sketching, like right there. It's kind of fluid. So develop flows smoothly into deliver. So when you do your research, I mean the assignment of checking out design thinking and double diamond, you see the images. I don't want to dwell on that right here because you guys will just check it out. So then now going to deliver, which is the last one, like I said, prototyping, which is where you sketch, you paper sketching, you draw your journey map, that's your user journey map, where you do your user flows and all those kind of things. Even in your information architecture, those things actually flow from develop into deliver. So what we do here is in deliver, you just basically improve and optimize your final learning, like your final experience. So here's where you do the proper testing, if there's any like proper testing, where you do full-blown usability testing. Then if you had already created like if you had created like 2 versions of the same solution, for instance, let's say you created 2 versions. Let's say when I was doing the food solution now, let's say I had like one version for a particular, for the same idea. So say maybe it could be this sketch, then, or I did a separate one. Okay, so maybe I can implement it this way or implement it this way. So maybe there are some screens you did double versions. So we have something we call A/B testing. So A/B testing is another way, is another style of testing. So we have usability testing, we have A/B testing. A/B testing means you're just testing version A against version B. That's A/B testing. Then here also under testing, another style of testing is just observational. So here you just observe the user. So it's called user observation. So here you just observe the user while they are making use of your prototype. So in this phase, you might be showing your wireframes. You might even be showing your full-blown high fidelity designs. That's like the ones that look like the real app. And then you just, you learn from it. So I have actually tried to run through the stages or the phases of the UX design process, both from design thinking point of view and double diamond point of view. So does anybody have any questions? Let me take quick questions before we go ahead. Any questions? Any questions?
Yeah, one question.
Yeah.
So for the double diamond, like it's sort of like from what you're saying, it's like combining the ideate phase and the prototype phase and a little bit of the test phase from design thinking together.
Okay, so yeah, sort of. So let me show you a diagram. Let me show you guys a diagram. I'll probably let me share my screen and show you this. So you see this right here. I'm sure you can see this, right, Linda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is the double diamond. I was going to show you guys this. I wanted you to just go and do your research. So this right here is what double diamond. So you see that it is one diamond, then another diamond. That's why it's called double diamond. So discover and define is in one diamond. Develop and deliver is another diamond. So that one is in one diamond, 2 are in one diamond, 2 are in another diamond because these 2 flow into one another. These other 2 flow into each other. So there are different diagrams actually for this double diamond. So if you go online and check double diamond, you probably see different ones, but they look exactly the same way as per the upper part. which is discover, define, develop, deliver. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, it does.
Okay, any other question? Okay, I would assume there's no other question.
I've got a question, Mrs. Miller.
Okay, go on, please.
Good question. So, is there like a specific difference between both of them? Like, is there something that is present in the double diamond UX design process and that is not present in the
No,
so
no.
they are
Okay, so they all have the same, what's it called, the same phases. This is why I need you guys to go ahead and do your research on this. So they actually are the same as per what you do overall. How they just go about it is what is slightly different. So the double diamond, especially when it has to do with develop and then deliver, has this fluid way of showing the whole iteration that goes through in the process. It's slightly unlike design thinking that says it is iterative but looks so linear. So that's just it. So most actually a lot of companies, a lot of teams subscribe to Double Diamond, even though a lot of people know design thinking more than more than Double Diamond. But in reality, a lot of teams actually use Double Diamond. So just do your research, and I'm sure you get it. It's actually not. There's nothing really big as per the differences between them. You can just do a research and just Google in differences between double diamond and design thinking. You see the answer to what I'm saying. Any other question? Okay. No other question. Okay, so I want to quickly run through the expectations for this program before we go too far. I'm going to try to set some expectations, I mean, week by week, so I'm sure you guys saw this brochure that was shared with you. Okay, so let me quickly scroll down to, okay, so throughout this program, you guys will learn how to choose a design problem. You carry out live UX research processes, which we even start from today. You brainstorm on ideas for your project, which you do in groups. I'll share you guys into 2 groups. Then you do paper sketch and you wireframe your ideas. You understand UI principles. You create high fidelity designs, and then you test your design with live users. So those are things that we'll be doing. And okay, so here, these are some of the things we've already covered before today. You've covered introduction to UX design, which we've run through a bit, and we've also run a bit today, and then you guys have seen a lot of content on it. UX design process, which we've done right now. Difference between UX and UI. I'll just ask you guys some questions on some of these fundamentals before we go ahead, because I want to be sure that these things are very clear. These theories are very important before we go into some practicals, because if you don't get the theory clear in your mind, you will implement it wrongly, basically. So conducting how you conduct UX research, competitive analysis, creating personas, defining the problem, and then information architecture. So now I just want somebody to tell me quickly what the difference between UX and UI is. I know all of you answered the questions, so I actually know what's in your heads, but I just want somebody to vocalize it. Anybody? Hi.
Hello. Yeah, this is Oba.
Okay.
Yeah, I think UI is are the components that the user gets to interact with to use your product, like buttons, color, while UX is the outcome of a good UI, like, a good set of UI components, and the speed, the accessibility, the UI that makes your user want to come back and extend your product to somebody else. Oh, have you seen this? So it's an experience, as the name implies, not really a set of rules. It's an experience. But for you to get UX, you need a lot of UIs and then a mindset of what I want to achieve with those UIs.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Bafemi. Okay. Anybody else? I don't know if I've heard Khalid's voice today. I don't know. I think
I've spoken twice.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
Then
Anybody else?
say something about the difference between UX and UI.
Okay.
So I would make reference to your video where you spoke about the car and the components of the car and yes. So UX is just the feel that the product gives. So any um before any manufacturer or any product designer at all sets out to create a particular solution, he or she would have considered how the user is going to interact with the solution. Yes, I want to solve a problem, but then I need to implement some other things even as I'm solving my problem because there are different ways that anybody could solve the problem. But if the users are more particular about mine, something has to be different about mine. So user experience is just defining how a user is going to interact with the solution. Then
Okay.
the user UI, which is user interface, is just designing physical means that would help the user interact with your solution. So that's just it. So if I'm to reference your example, so the car in itself, physical part is the UI, while the engine and the other part that make the car function are the UX. So that's it.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So basically, let me just say my own. So I would say UI is a subset of UX. When we went through the design thinking, you saw the phase that they call prototype. Prototype, right there, 1 out of 5. That is where UI falls into. So every other thing, that's all the rest of the 4 processes, is not necessarily, it's not directly linked to UI, it's more of the UX. So UX is like the mother. Okay. So I see that you guys understand that. So let's not draw too long in that. Then now as per, okay, so let me still continue doing the quick rundown before we go further. So the next thing here will be what we already actually started some of this, but we're going to go more into this where we'll talk about how do you find out who your users are, how do you identify problems and needs, how do you carry out and synthesize user interviews. Under synthesizing your interviews, that's where I'll show you the affinity diagram I said I'll show you guys. So I'll still show you guys that. Creating your research reports. That's after you've carried out your own research, you have to create a report. In short, one of the things that are even missing on this list is before you even carry out your research at all, you need a research plan. So I would share with you guys 2 templates. I'll share with you a template of research plan, and I'll share with you a template of research report, because these 2 things are things you must submit by the time we are meeting the next session. Okay, so we'll touch a bit on paper sketching, we'll touch a bit on usability testing. We've actually touched a bit on some of these things already. And then how do you present your ideas to stakeholders? So those are the things we're doing today. Intention actually is for us to cover a bit of Unit 2, but I don't know if we'll be able to do that. But information architecture is something from the video you guys must have watched from yesterday's email, something that you would have understood a bit about. So we might touch on a little on information architecture today. If not, that will be something we'll do next week. Information architecture, wireframing. So this part will be more on UI. So we'll be doing more of UI foundation next week. And so we're going to do a lot of UI next week. Then the 3rd week, after the 3rd week, we'll be covering stuff that are missing, things that normally you don't see in a regular UX class, which includes UX writing, testing your designs, documenting your work, building your portfolio. And that's basically it. So the 4th week, we're actually not going to be teaching anything. But by that time, I expect your project to be complete. And we'll talk about the project also in a bit. I'll share with you guys the case study that we'll be working on. So backing up to this point, now let me quickly state what the assignment for today will be. So the assignment for today would be, I would share, like I said, I'll share with you guys the research plan. So you have to come up with an actual research plan. You have to put some thinking. Okay, so firstly, I'll actually share the case study with you. So we'll talk a bit, maybe 1 or 2 minutes about what your whole project will be. Then secondly, I will now show you, the first thing would now be, you guys have to fill up your research plan. So research plan, I'll show you guys an example and you see the elements that comes up in it. Then also you also have to carry out your actual research. Everybody's going to interview between 3 to 5 users. You must interview 3 to 5 users, and then you're also going to carry out surveys. So everybody must send out survey. You must you must get back field surveys from at least 30 people that fall within that user group. You need relevant data. So that's going to be the assignment for that part. Then also, after you've carried out your research, you're going to synthesize, and this will be done in groups. So I'll share you, like I said, share into groups, and then here is where you're going to do your own affinity diagram. Like I said, I'll show you guys that too. So affinity diagram, and then in addition to your affinity diagram, you're also going to do the this is where you actually would need to interact, which is the brainstorming, where you start coming up with ideas. So that's the ideation stage. So in short, that's the part that I would need you guys to actually interact the most. So we'll have that, so that's ideation, and then the last part of your assignment would then be to create your research reports. So those are the things you would be submitting by next week Saturday. I know it's a lot, actually. If you think it's not a lot, it means you don't really understand what you're going to do. So I know it's a lot, but this is how we're going to do it. Midweek, in the middle of the week, which should be about Wednesday, on Wednesday, yes, I expect a part of your assignment to be submitted, and then the rest of it will be submitted on Saturday. The reason why I've broken it down this way is because I need you guys to keep yourself accountable, and also because there's actually no much time. You think you have a whole week, but you don't really have a lot of time. So that's what we'll be doing. I hope you guys took note of it. Please, if you missed out anything in those assignments, let me know right now. Did you get all that?
In truth, I missed a lot, but I actually got like the overview of what you want us to do.
Okay, run me through what you think you got so that I'll see what's missing.
Okay, so you're going to give us a case study today. We're supposed to create a research plan, and then we're going to carry out surveys, at least 30 people. We're going to document
so you missed out from the you missed out that you're going to do an interview with 3 to 5 people.
Interview.
Okay. Yeah, so you do that before you do your survey.
Okay.
So interview before survey. Okay.
Okay. Then after doing the survey, we're supposed to create our research reports.
Okay. So yeah, you missed. So after doing your survey, yeah. Okay. So let me back up a bit. After you do your interviews, before your survey, you're going to synthesize the data you got from your interview. So you'll have talked to 3 to 5 people. So you have to synthesize that data. That's a different research. So here is where you do affinity mapping. So you do your affinity mapping, then you carry out your surveys, and you also come back again and also synthesize the results of your survey. So I'll show you guys how you do that as well for surveys. So after that is where you now create your research report.
Okay.
Okay, now did everybody get that?
I got it.
Okay. So I'll take that everybody got it. Okay, cool.
Mercy wants it to be written out.
Who wants it to be written out?
So Miss Grace.
Yes.
So the assignment ends at creating a research report.
Yes. So that's where your assignment would end. You're creating your research report. Yes.
Okay.
Please, Ma, can it?
Please, Ma, I can't hear you clearly. What did you say?
No, I said when you were listing out the assignments earlier, it was. I think I heard something about brainstorming and all that.
Yeah, okay, so brainstorming I mentioned is where that's okay. Okay. So this is the thing, right? You do your research. Okay, so I want you guys to even brainstorm. Okay, so you're right, actually. So you do a brainstorming where you guys would, based on your research, based on the synthesis, based on the ideation, based on the, not ideation, based on your own research, because you would have done the first stage, which is empathize with the user. I'm using the design thinking right now, empathize with the user, and then you would have done, what's it called, your definition of the problem, which is where you do your synthesis and all that. You would have created your research report. And then, so after that, I want you guys to actually end it with ideation. So ideation is where you just do a group work. So I've done all this my work on my own. So now all together as a group. So as a group, let us, what do we think is the solution? What are some ideas? So I'm expecting you guys to list as many ideas as possible, at least 5 ideas, between 5 and 10 ideas. So like bring up all the ideas so that we'll be reviewing your ideas by next week. So yes, you're right. Thank you for that. Somebody was saying something. Someone was, yeah.
Sorry, madam. I didn't get the last sentence. You say idea, 5 ideas, 5 to 10 ideas. About what? Is it about the case study we want to?
And someone please answer his question. What idea are we talking about?
It will be based on the case study that you give us.
Okay. Today. Yes. So based on the case study, based on the research you would have done, research. You would have done, you'll have analyzed the research you did, which is through affinity mapping. I'll show you guys. I'm just literally running through your assignment so that you'll be putting 2 and 2 together once I start showing you these things. So then ideation is where it's just listing. You just list ideas. This is a group work. You guys will agree on a time that is okay with all of you. You can meet for 30 minutes, maybe online, have a quick meeting, and then you just basically note ideas. Or maybe individually, you guys will have written ideas and then you just meet for 15 minutes and just bring your ideas together. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So Mercy is still asking that I write out the assignment. Okay, I'll think about it. If anything is not clear on the assignment, please ask like right now. If you missed out anything, say it now, just in case I think about it and I think otherwise not to write it.
Okay, I missed out because at some point that you were breaking, I got the point where you said we should do a research, and later I got to find out that you were going to give us a topic for the research. So I got that point, and that I got to the point where you say we should analyze through affinity mapping, ideation. Now I didn't get the other parts.
Okay.
I was hearing survey and no survey.
Okay. You know what? Now let's just get to it. Let me show you guys the case study. And you begin to put the pieces together. Okay, so I'll be sharing this screen. Like I said earlier, I'll actually be sharing the recording with you guys, and by Wednesday, I'll just like pull it down. So you'd have the recording of this class, just in case your internet has been fluctuating. So I believe you can see this screen. So this is the case study. Let me just read it out. So today, companies are looking for talented and empathetic employees. Recruiters, HR managers, and business owners have been losing so much time trying to find the right candidates with unnecessary emails, long phone calls, candidates who do not even come for their interviews, and those who do not meet the company's requirements. Talented applicants, on the other hand, have been wasting a lot of time applying to jobs whose requirements are unclear and then receive no feedback from most of the job application process. That is the case study. So this right here is like the problem state. Sure, this is not the problem statement, this is just case study. So this gives you an idea of what we want to solve from 2 points of view. In short, I've gone ahead to even break this down. This is similar to the kind of brief you get from a client. Most clients will not give you a documented brief. They'll just tell you, hey, I have something I want to, there's something I want to build, and then they'll just tell you they can even have a phone conversation with you, and then based on that, they expect you to start working. So it's your job, it will be your job most of the time to actually break down whatever it is you heard in the meeting into something like this, a short, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 paragraphs at most. So I've gone ahead to do this for you guys. And then also, let me try to relate this to how it works in teams. So let me use a company as an example. Which company should we use? Someone should give me a company to use as an example. Any company, actually. I want to actually break down any problem into a case study. Please let it be a company I'm aware of. Any popular company. What do you say?
Chevron.
Chevron. Okay. Let me try. Okay, Chevron. So Chevron is an oil company, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it's an oil
Okay.
company.
Okay. So, okay. So let me see. There's one problem I think oil companies generally have, and that may be something they want to solve. So, oil spillage. Oil spillage is something that happens often, and they always have to manage public opinion and balance the community, basically. So, let's say the company wants to run a program to let people understand that I'm actually winging this right now. I'm winging this. So maybe the company wants to run a program in the community, or they want to launch, let me see. Hold on, give me a moment. Let me think it. Okay, so let's say oil spillage, right? So the company wants to now have a situation where people understand that the oil spillage will not actually damage their livelihood. Let's say that's the PR spin that the company wants to do. Now, a company can call you as the designer and say, this is the problem we are facing, and we want to solve this problem. How do you, well, we just want you to solve the problem. So we think that we can build an app. So they will probably just be rambling about one app. Okay, we'll build an app that will just have information, and then maybe even free education for maybe the less privileged. Something, that's how companies normally would come up. A number of them, not all, a number of them are not very, very clear on what exactly they want. So if something like that comes up, what you do as a UX designer is to the first thing you do is to first try to listen. You try to, here is where you start putting your own UX skills into practice by empathizing with them. Try to listen to it from their point of view, but you also let them know that you need to hear from the other party, because this is about 2 parties: the company, and then you have the other party, which is the community people. So now, similar to what we have in this case study, we have 2 groups of people. So we can't just look at the problem only from the point of view of the recruiters or the HR managers or business owners. It is a 2-sided situation. So the other group of people are the applicants. So that's what I'm trying to break down to you. So this is how you step out of your position as just design. It's not straight away you now start thinking, okay, we're going to do a mobile app, or we're going to do web app. In the end, you might not even need that. You might not need that kind of solution in the end. Some problems are way simpler. And your UX, as a UX designer, it's not about just being a UI designer. It's not all about just drawing pretty designs. So let me see if I can come up with a clearer example. Let me use Paystack. Okay. Is there anybody that doesn't know Paystack? Anybody? Does everybody know Paystack? Paystack. Does everybody know Paystack?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So everybody knows Paystack. Let me use Paystack. So Paystack is built on solving one problem. Paystack solves the problem of payment for mainly for merchants or business owners. That's the major problem Paystack solves. So now how they decide to solve it is a different solution altogether. There's Flutterwave, there is regular banks. So all these are competitors. So what I'm doing right here is already doing a competitor analysis. So for Paystack to come up with their solution at the very, very beginning, what they must have done, number one thing, one of the very important things they will have done, even before they start speaking to users, is to do a competitor analysis. Because they're not doing something they're not solving a problem that is not being solved already. So one way people send money is by sending through regular banks. So I'm sure they will have researched on regular bank transactions and seen what issues people are having with that. Another thing that they would have done is they will have, well, of course, there's regular banks, then there's also other companies like maybe Flutterwave, other companies like even, there's PayPal. So people already do carry out transactions through this other means. So that's computer analysis. So I'm giving you guys how computer analysis is done. How they will have done that research is by, first, Google. Google is a great resource when it comes to computer analysis. You do some keyword analysis. We'll not be going deep into that. Then coming to research, what they will have done here is they'll sat down and be like, okay, who are our targets? Who are the people we are trying, who are the people that are suffering the most in this problem we are trying to solve? So the people that are suffering the most are merchants. Okay, merchants is very huge. What group of merchants are we trying to solve problem for? Is it like big company kind of merchant, or is it small businesses? Now see what Paystack did. They focused on small businesses. Paystack's major group of customers are smaller businesses, people that are not making all the billions. So what they did is they're having a transaction fee, but now that's part of ideation. That's where they came up with ideas. But they first talked to the users. So after talking to the users, they said, okay, now we've gathered all this data. How do we now move forward? The next thing is to synthesize. This is where they now say, okay, we have, maybe they did interviews and then they recorded it maybe with their device. They recorded it with their device, maybe whatever device, recording devices. And after recording it, they have maybe like 2 hours or 3 hours or even 5 hours or 10 hours of recorded interviews. What they do next is to sit down. Researchers will sit down, listen back. Those that took notes while they were doing research will bring out their notes. Now they'll use a tool such as Miro, M-I-R-O. So please write that down, M-I-R-O. That's the tool we'll be using. They'll use a tool such as Miro, so Miro.com. I don't know if it's called Miro or Miro. Just call it Miro. So there is a tool such as that, and then they'll use it. It's a very simple whiteboard kind of tool. They use that, or if they were in a physical location, that's the researchers and everybody in a physical location, they'll just use an empty board, like an empty wall. You can use an empty wall or an empty glass and just pin sticky notes. So what you use here is you just write one simple thing that you heard from the recording or from the notes that people have taken. You just note it down, one thing, just one thing. I'll show you guys that this is the beginning of affinity mapping that I mentioned. So they will do that. So that's where affinity mapping comes up in your assignment. When they do that, they'll just write it down, just write it on sticky notes. You could have, in the end, depending on how large the problem you're trying to solve is, you could have as much as hundreds of sticky notes. Then where the mapping, the word mapping in affinity mapping comes from is where you now start mapping similar things. So there's no how that you interview a number of people and you don't start finding similarities in what they said if it's the same problem you're solving. Human beings, as much as we're not the same, we have similar opinions on things. So this is where they will now come and say, okay, fine. Start dragging sticky notes from this place, put it here. Remove this one and put it here. So I'll show you guys how to do that. Very, very quickly. So when they finish doing that, now they will have this beautiful wall of well-sorted research results that they've put together. And then when they finish doing that, they would then say, okay, now it's time for us to start, let's see, what we'll do next. Let's start bringing up ideas. So based on talking to people, you can start saying, okay, so maybe one idea would be, let us create a solution, a web app. One solution, could have just been, let us have physical points where people can come and make transactions and physically be able to make transactions. So that could be one solution, but they decided to go digital. So a digital means is, okay, let's have a platform that makes it easy as possible for people to just simply do transactions. Very simple, and we'll just collect our one small share. So those were ideas. Start listing. How do we do this? How do we solve this particular problem that users say they have? The right. So that is ideation. After ideating, they will then come up with, I actually missed out the research plan that they will have drawn out before they even started doing competitor analysis or whatever. But in the end, after doing all that, they will now have to come up with a research report. A research report is important because as designers, as either UX researcher or UI designer or an overall UX designer, as a designer, you would carry out research, but if you do not justify your results, if you don't have your documentation properly, you would not be able to convince stakeholders such as CEOs and investors. So maybe before Paystack even developed any actual solution, I don't know exactly, but maybe this could apply to any other company. They could have just created their research report and said, this is the result of the research we've done. And as a result of this, we believe this and this and this are things that will actually solve this problem. And based on this, we are requesting for, let's see, $1 million, or we're requesting for $2 million to solve this problem. So that is what a couple of companies do. Some other companies will go ahead to create an actual prototype or high fidelity design before to actually get some investment. So that is how it actually works. So what, let me just go ahead to show you guys what your research plan will be like, because after you've read through this case study and you've understood it, you sit down, you read it and try to put yourself in the shoes of the users. What you have to do before you can even go on is to create your research plan. So I want to show you guys. If you have any questions in the meantime, you can feel free to ask. I want to show you guys a research plan. Okay, so no questions. Okay, so this is an example of a research plan for a project for a pet project I was doing. So I would share something similar to this. Basically, you just have your title, whatever problem you think it is, you have a title, and then you have this first part. So only focus only on this first part. Kindly ignore the lower part for now. So you have this part where it's called your interview. So we have three major types of interviews you can carry out. The first one is unstructured interview. The second one is semi-structured, and the third one is structured interview. So, well, it just means what it means. Unstructured means, well, just flow, free flowing. Depending on how you talk to the people, it just flows. You don't have an actual script before you go out to talk to them. Meanwhile, on the other spectrum of things, you have the structured interview, which is very structured. So all the questions you ask are the only questions you ask, and it's very structured. The time of your interview, if you said it is 30 minutes, but it's 30 minutes on the dot. Meanwhile, we have semi-structured interviews, which is in between. So it's a blend of both, where it's slightly unstructured, but slightly structured. So you have your script, but based on how the interview goes, you could say, okay, maybe you could ask a question, and based on that question, you could say, okay, maybe you need to ask a follow-up question. So that is what semi-structured interview is about. So that's the type of interview you guys should be doing, a semi-structured interview. Okay, so you create your background. So your background, you could call this, you could call your background from the case study that I'll be giving you guys. That I will send to you guys. So you call your background from it, and please, you should actually reword it. So I'll send you guys this template. You can use this to work on yours. Then you write your research goal. That's the next thing. So under this, you need, the first section is background. Then you have your research goal, which is what you're trying to solve. You have your research questions, which is what are the major things? This is not the actual questions you're going to ask during the interview. This is not the actual question. This is like, overall, what exactly am I trying to even find out? Overall, like, what are the needs? Like, for instance, this was for this particular project. This was what I was trying to find out. So for this case study that you guys are doing, so maybe you're trying to find out, let me think of one for you. Maybe you're trying to find out what are the frustrations of interviewers? Maybe that's the question you're trying to find out. So what are the frustrations of interviewers? Or another question could be for behavior. So we have needs, we have behaviors. So under behaviors, you could be trying to find out, okay, how do interviewers or how do recruiters currently get their, how do they currently get employees for companies? Or how do you currently match employees to companies? That could be another question that you're trying to, that could be another thing you're trying to find out. Then it could also be, okay, you may also want to know, so there are three major things I'm expecting you guys to find. I'm already giving you guys like tips on what to ask. So three major things I'm expecting you guys to find out. Your questions, when you finally break down your questions, I want you to answer number one. How do business owners or interviewers or recruiters, whatsoever, how do they currently get employees for companies? Either a business owner for their own company or a recruiter for other companies or whatever. That's the first time I'm expecting you guys to find out, how does that happen right now? Like, because they have a process right now, no matter how manual, whatever it is that they're doing, how do they do that first? Number two, I want you guys to know what exactly are the problems, what are their frustrations, what are the needs, what's paining them, right? So you need to find that out. Then thirdly, you also need to know right now, how do they interact with existing platforms? Because just in case there's a platform, this third one is optional. From your research, you might find out that, okay, maybe they're never using any platform, maybe they're doing it all manually, but I actually believe they use some platforms right now. So how do they interact with some of these platforms? What platforms do they use right now? All those kind of things. So those are the questions you will later on break your overall research questions into. So now this right here, this section that is called research questions, is what is sometimes called your overarching research question. So like, what is that overall thing you're trying to find out from your research? So your research plan is to have that as well. Then method, how are you going to go about this? So are you going to do in-person interviews, face-to-face, or are you going to do remote interviews? How many minutes? So you try to structure that, you write it down. This is going to be your guideline for your sessions. Then, okay, so you also do your interview script. So I just noted that down in this document. Recruiting, okay. So how many people will you be talking to? In what category will they fall under? So if there are recruiters, for instance, that you'll be talking to, so recruiters who maybe they have been at least doing recruitment for a couple of times, whatever your criteria, whatever your criteria would be, you list them under recruiting. So how do you intend to recruit people? You write it down. Screening questions. So this screening questions part is a bit important. Okay, it's quite important. So the reason why you do screening questions is because, let's say you were going to carry out a full-blown, like, big interview, and then you don't want people that will just join and then they don't fall into the category. To begin with, if they are not a recruiter or they don't even own a business or whatsoever, then they should be screened out. So what was done here is, I have the screening questions like, okay, for this particular project, I wanted to know, are you a business owner? So yes, if yes, then you pass, you'll be able to, you're somebody that I will continue my interview with, or I would even go ahead with. So those are some screening questions. So this is quite important. if you'd like to save a lot of time when you're doing your interviews, you don't want to be interviewing the wrong people. So that's why this is important. Um, then we have timeline. So you have to create your timeline. Well, you have only 1 week for this project, so you don't have all the time really. So, but still, you create a timeline section. So just write your when do you need to create so whatever it is you need to do. So when you want to do your research plan, you must have concluded your research plan. You write it here. So that's basically what I think I called the proposal. When am I going to be done with recruiting? When am I going to actually have my interview sessions? I write the time there. Then you need your actual script. So your actual script is what you're actually going to say. So you remember that this is a semi-structured interview. You need to have a script, but you may not follow it to the dot, but you need to have an entry. So for instance, what I could say during this is what I wrote down here. Hello, my name is Grace Adeomi. Thank you very much for, that was my name at the time. My name is Ademola Adenina. So hello, my name is Grace Ademola Adenina. So thank them for participating in the studies. You tell them what you're trying to solve. Tell them what you're trying to investigate. They need to be able to understand what you're trying to solve, so that they can be able to so they'll be able to empathize and be able to answer you from that point of view. And then give them an idea of how much time you will take. You have to be respectful of people's time. If you're not respectful of their time the first time, they can bolt out to be annoyed. And then when you need them next time, which you probably do, they'll be nowhere to be found. Okay, so you give them an idea of how much time you take, and then you can just give them some ground rules. If they would like to take a break, they should let you know. Do you have any questions before you start? They probably say they don't have questions, or they'll tell you want to have questions. Then you have to let them know that you're going to be recording their session. If you're going to be recording it, it's important. Very, very important. So, and that is it. Then you have your actual interview questions. So all these interview questions that are listed here. So here I had 12 interview questions. They were based on the overarching research questions that I listed earlier. So now once I have my major, maybe 2 or 3 things I'm trying to find out throughout this research, I'll now break those down into actual questions, like specific questions. Now, when you're creating your interview questions, please try to avoid certain things. And I'm sure you would have seen and heard this in the videos I sent to you yesterday. Very, very important thing. Try to avoid close-ended questions during interviews. Try to avoid close-ended questions. Close-ended questions are those kind of questions where you need yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Those kind of questions are problematic questions because you don't actually get qualitative data. Interview is a qualitative form of research. So if you're asking those kind of questions, you're not getting any real data that you need. You need them to interact. You need them to walk you through some certain processes that they do. You need them to have questions. So you need more of open-ended questions because it's like conversational. Then you also need to avoid what we call double-barreled questions. Double-barreled questions is when you're asking 2 questions inside 1 question. That's why you need to literally write down your interview questions so that you get your act straight. So look at an example of this question. So can you walk me through your current process of blah, blah, blah? So you can ask, for this kind of project we are doing, asking a recruiter, for instance, can you walk me through your current process of placing an advert or placing a job vacancy out there? Or you could be asking a recruiter, an applicant, I mean, how can you walk me through your current process of even applying for jobs? How do you currently find jobs? You could say it that way. So then you can also ask questions about timeline to basically establish frequency. So you could say within the last 6 months, how many can you estimate how many times you've actually applied for jobs and you got feedback? Can you estimate how many times? That could be for an applicant. Or you could be asking a recruiter, in the last 3 months, maybe during this lockdown period, were you able to, during the corona pandemic period, were you able to, about how many times, can you estimate how many times you were able to actually recruit for companies successfully without seeing them physically? Something like that. So try not to join 2 questions together. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, then lastly, you have to wrap up. So wrap up is basically where you just say, thank you so much, thanking them. Your answers will help us build something, and that's it. And then you then have, so this section, I just wrote it down here. And this section is called recruiting email. So if you're going to be getting your participants, maybe by email, maybe you have the email addresses of some people, so you probably be sending a recruiting email. But if, for instance, let's say you want to get recruiters, so one place you could get them is on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, people are actually much more kind than you think they are. So you could come up with a script, a simple message that you send people on LinkedIn. That's for like recruiters. For applicants, you could just use your WhatsApp contact. You have a number of people. So I'm giving you guys some ideas of where you could find potential participants for your interviews. You remember, you don't need very much people. I'm giving you guys between 3 to 5 people. So if you talk to 3 people, it's fine. 4 people is fine. 5 people is fine. I don't expect more than 5 people. So, so you have something like that, and that's it. So this is it for your interview. So I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts before I go on to the survey part. So what are your thoughts, please? Any questions? Anything at all?
So when planning the interview questions, so like I know that eventually it's going to come from the case study, but like how do I know the demographics that I should be aiming at?
Okay, so do you remember our case study?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, give me your own idea of who you think the demographics would be.
Business owners or people in charge of recruiting, maybe like HR personnel or people that are just assigned to recruiting. People that apply for jobs could be any age range, but the way I see it, I'm thinking people that apply more online, that are tech savvy in a way.
Okay, so you've answered your question yourself. You see what you just did there?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so that actually answers the question. So you just need to put some thoughts into it. So if you read through the case study, by the time you give it 5 minutes thoughts, 10 minutes thoughts, you self you'll be excited. You start noting down some things. You're like, okay, so these are possible people I can talk to. So there are two major groups of users that I want to talk to. The first group of people are people that get staff. Whether you're a recruiter or you're a business owner or whatever, that's one group of people. Then the second group of people that are always that are applying for jobs. So we have that second group of people. So two major user groups. Then you can now break down the first user group. Okay, so who are going to be potential people that get staff? So business owners. Okay, business owners. Okay, so that's a group of people. Recruiters. So people that are recruiting for other companies. Okay, cool. In short, I've actually broken it down for you guys already in the case study. Most case studies or most project briefs won't be that way. So the other one could be then maybe HR managers within companies already. So that's actually it. Then for your applicants, you could be like, okay, so applicants, like you said already, probably people that are tech savvy. So it means that you'll be finding those group of people online. It's not like you'll go under the bridge and go and try to talk to some people. Like probably those people would not be tech savvy. They may not even have a phone device because you're trying to solve a digital problem. So yeah, that helps with that. So what I want to do now before we go on, okay, so does anybody else have a question? Anybody at all before I go ahead? Any questions? Okay, I'll assume there's no question, which is a good thing. So before we go ahead to looking at this section for your surveys, for online surveys, because I mentioned you carry out interviews and then you carry out surveys. Before we go ahead to that, I want to show you guys what you do after you carry out your interview. So if during your interview you, what's it called? If during your interview you recorded, or if you were carrying out a remote interview and you had a chance, or maybe somebody else with you, you can beg somebody, or you yourself, you were noting down stuff quickly as you could, in addition to recording. Then after you're done with all that, it will now be your job to say, okay, wow, I've gathered a lot of data. Now it's time for me to analyze the data that I have and try to make some sense of it. So that's, I want to bring out some insights from what I've found out. So I'll show you guys this affinity mapping that we've been talking about. That's what we're about to do now. So I'll show you guys an example for the research plan I shared with you guys just now. I'll show you how that is done. So I mentioned Miro, miro.com. So that is a tool that you'd be using for your research analysis, or specifically for your affinity diagramming, or affinity mapping. So let me share the screen with you. So Miro.com is a very simple tool. You simply just sign up and just create a board. It's actually very, very easy. You literally get set up in under a minute if your internet is not messing up. So it's very easy. So this is Miro. This is how it will look like. Immediately you create a new, immediately you come, this is how it will be. To just be an empty board like this. And you have these tools on the left. You have this pointer. Well, pointer is just a pointer, really. You have templates. You probably not need this at this point, but if you need templates later on, we have all sorts of templates, user story, wireframing. You can actually do wireframing in Miro when we get to that stage. Brainwriting, or brainwriting is actually a form, a style like brainstorming. It's actually a style like brainstorming. So flowcharts, you have so many templates here, but for this part, I don't need you guys to do a template, to use a template. So you have this text. If you want to write something at the top, you just write what you want to write, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's so tiny, you guys can't see this. So you can increase the size. So you have this, you have these features, really nice. And then I don't need this. Okay. Then you have, this is the one you actually would need the most, which is sticky note. So here, let's say, so I've clicked on this now. I'll just choose a color. I'll choose this color and I'll come here. So let's say I have 30 minutes of record after speaking to a particular recruiter. And now I want to now come and analyze. So I've spoken to 4 recruiters already, 4 recruiters and 4 applicants. Remember, it's between 3 to 5 per user group. So 3, 3, or 4, 4, whatever it is, or 4, 3, anyhow you like it. So I've spoken to these people, and then now I have data separately for applicants, data separately for recruiters. Now, while listening back to the audio that I recorded, or while looking at the notes that I was able to scribble down quickly, which is not ideal, by the way. But while doing that, I'm now saying, okay, so maybe a particular recruiter said, it is so frustrating getting applicants. Okay, somebody could have said that. I'll write it down. I can duplicate this so I don't have to go back to sticky notes. Now, let's say the same person said, what else could the person have said? Someone should give me ideas, please. Give me some ideas of what a recruiter could have said. Let's just quickly, let's quickly do this together. Give me some ideas.
There are so many
Like,
CVs to look at.
There are so many what?
CVs to look at.
Aha, there are so many CVs to look at. Okay.
another one is maybe they don't have feedback. They don't get feedback.
Who could be saying that?
The applicant.
Okay, this is for applicants. Okay, you see right there. So if this is an applicant, you know, you'd be sorting out this data per user per time so that you don't get confused. The idea here is for you to try to, while you're listening to your recording, it is for you to, in that moment, you'll be remembering what they said. So if you're listening to, in the middle, while you're listening to a recruiter, you're now going ahead and you're going to go and listen to applicants, you are modeling information in your head. So it's better for you to finish with even one particular recruiter, go to the next recruiter, go to the next recruiter, then so that you would have that, the way our brain is made, like if you have too many information coming at once, you actually confuse yourself. So let's quickly finish with recruiter first, then we'll now come to applicants. So somebody else, anybody? Does anybody have something to say? I want to have like up to like 5 or 6 things from this for this recruiter.
Getting the applicant with the right tools or skills.
Okay, so you see that statement you made now, getting the right applicant with the right tools or skills. So that's you see, that's an incomplete statement. There's no insights that could be brought out of that finding. That's, in short, that's actually an incomplete finding. So you try to make sure that what you are noting down in your sticky notes are stuff that if you move it out like this from all the data that is here, it will make sense on its own. Do you guys get what I mean?
Yes.
Okay. So
can that be rephrased?
Yes, sure. So
like, so not getting the right applicant for a particular job for the said position.
So not getting the right applicants for the said position.
Yes.
Okay. So you see, you don't actually need to write things verbatim how the person said it. This is something you should note. In as much as you are encouraged, it's actually an encouragement for you to do as much, to document as much of direct quotes as possible. That is exactly how the person says. Maybe something like, it is so frustrating getting applicants. Maybe this was a direct quote. It is encouraged for you to get as much of direct quotes as possible, but you don't have to do it every time. It could be something you deduced from what the person said, from what the participant said, and then you just go ahead to note it down. So now we have something called empathy map. We won't be able to go deep into it, but if you want to do a research on it, please note it down. Empathy map. Empathy map is something that it documents 4 things. It's like a quadrant. So it documents 4 things. It documents firstly what the person said. So it's basically to document what the person said during your research. To document what the person feels during your research. To document what the person thinks during your research and what the person does. So 4 things. What the person says, thinks, feels, does. So when you do if you are interested in doing your empathy map, I'm sure that will be extra marks for you. It is not a requirement, but it's going to be good if you do an empathy map based on your research. But if you are going to be doing empathy map, it's something you do when you are done with your affinity mapping, if you are going to be doing that. Okay, so now, let me see. Okay, so what I want to do now is, I don't want to spend so much time on this, but what I'm trying to show you guys is, you could have, let me duplicate this and just write participant 1. So I've used this to say that all the ones in yellow are from participant 1. Then I could go ahead, so let me not go too deep with this. Let me show you something that I did for that research. We looked at the research plan I was showing you guys. So this is what I did. So you have participant 1, I just noted participant 1, participant 2, participant 3. It's not very relevant to have the person's name and other information, but if it is relevant to the research you're doing, in this case, it may be relevant. For instance, if you're, maybe for the applicant's part, you could be doing research and then you realize, okay, maybe the age range is relevant, whatever. If that's the case, if they will be open to answering such questions, but you have to be careful with the kind of questions you ask during an interview. It can make a person to shut down if you go and start asking, what's your age? You know how people are close to, like, they don't want to be answering such kind of questions, such personal questions. But if you make it, if you really want to know, like, how old the person is, you can make it a little bit open to asking for their age range. So that's another tip in actually doing a research. So you can ask, instead of asking how old are you, you could ask, can you give me an idea? You know, you have to be smart. You have to use some psychology when you're talking to people. So you have to say, you could say something like, Can you give me an idea of your age range? Would you say you're in between 20 to 25, or you could say between 20 to 30, or would you say you're above 50? So you could use that as a way of getting age range if it is relevant to your research. So if that was relevant to my research, right here, I could have written, after participant 1, I could have written the age range. So maybe 45 to 50, something like that. Okay, I will have just expanded this if that was relevant to my research. So something like that, but that's not relevant, so I'll just remove this. So,
Hello, ma.
yes, go on, please.
Okay, I want to ask a question. In a situation where you, where maybe these questions were actually asked from HR personnel from different organizations. Now, is it okay to maybe not write the name of the HR, but the name of the organizations there, and noting that this interview was done from the HR department?
Yes, yes, yes. So that could be very relevant to your research. For instance, that could be relevant because you want to later on be able to analyze the kind of companies that these people work for. A way you could get that, even if they will not be, even if a recruiter may not want to tell you the companies that they recruit for, they may not want to actually. That's one of those kind of questions that they may be close to. So if you want to ask such a question, you can ask and say, do you mind giving me a list of some of the companies you recruit for? You have to be mindful, like you have to say, do you mind? Because they might mind. So if you want to get such, you can say, ask it that way. Or another way is you could even ask about their industry. So what industry do you recruit for? So if that's relevant information, you could know maybe they are recruiting for the telecommunications industry, or they are recruiting for e-commerce or whatsoever. So that could give you an idea. So that's actually a good question. It might be relevant. So the reason why that may be relevant is because later on, there's something called overscoping. Overscoping is where you have such a huge problem, and then finding a way to streamline it to something smaller that you can actually build a small product on. So for instance, a problem that could come up later if you don't have appropriate data is you might now have so much data, which is good, but so much this like diverging data that you now say, okay, wow, can we even, like, how do we build a solution for like the whole world, for instance, like all the recruiters in the world, or how do we even build a solution for all the industries? So an idea could be, I'm already doing some ideation for you guys now. Even so, let me just give you an idea. An idea could be, okay, maybe we'll just build for a sector. So maybe we'll build only for, maybe we're building a solution, maybe an app for maybe the, let me see, what sector is interesting? Maybe fintech, that's financial technology. So maybe you're building for fintech. Fintech companies are like Alert, Kuda Bank. What about this mobile transfer kind of companies? Can somebody give me another one, please? There are many of them actually. I'm trying to remember.
InterSwitch.
No, InterSwitch is actually not necessarily, well, it actually is a fintech. It is a fintech, actually. It is a fintech, yes. So we have all those kind of companies, Paystack, Flutterwave, all of them, yes. So,
Cashbox.
what do you call it?
Cashbox.
Cashbox.
I know Cashbox.
I don't even know that one. Okay, so.
Okay.
So
What about
basically,
Pioneer?
yeah, Pioneer, exactly. So you see how Pioneer is not even a Nigerian company now. But basically, you could say, okay, let's build this solution for maybe, one idea could be, okay, let's do it for a particular industry. So if you're doing for a particular industry, you could choose based on my research, okay, let's build, this problem seems to be more rampant. Maybe you find out from your research, maybe this problem is more rampant in the fintech industry, or maybe it is small business owners that are having more of a problem with employing staff, or maybe it's the beauty slash fashion industry. They're actually having a big problem with getting staff. You could actually, based on your research, you could actually focus your ideas later on. Another way of avoiding overscoping is from the very beginning, before you go out for research, you could have assumptions. You could be like, okay, there's nothing wrong with having assumptions. Actually, there's actually nothing wrong with having assumptions. The problem there is if you don't properly validate or invalidate your assumptions. So from the beginning, you could say, okay, so this is going to be, you can project that this is going to be a very huge problem. So you could say, okay, what industry do I want to focus my research on? Maybe you look at the time you have. I don't have very much time for this research. So how about I focus on small businesses? Maybe I will do my research batch by batch. So I'll probably maybe just talk to 3 small business owners, then I'll talk to 3 general recruiters. Based on that, I'll be able to watch the patterns and be able to choose which of them I want to focus on. So maybe you could focus on general recruitment, the kind of problems that recruiters have, and maybe even HR managers have, that kind of thing. Then maybe another, what's it called? Another problem could be from the business owner's point of view. I know you guys get what I mean. So another thing is, these are some tips I'm trying to share with you guys. So another thing could be, one problem, I'm even giving you guys an idea now. One problem I've realized when it comes to recruiting is the fact that many recruiters and even HR managers have problems with job description. It's not that they don't want to put the right job description that fits the role, but sometimes they don't even know the job description that fits that role exactly as per the experience. So, we have junior level of certain roles, we have mid-level, we have senior level of certain roles. So they probably don't even know maybe that, okay, for this particular role, maybe you want a lead designer, for instance, you want a lead UX designer for a role, maybe the person that's going to lead the whole design processes in the company. But you don't even know that such a person should have at least 10 years of experience. So they go ahead and they go and put 3 to 5 years of experience. And when they put 3 to 5 years of experience, all sort of people will apply for the job. Is it their fault? No, it's not their fault. It's not the fault of the applicants, but the problem came from the job description from the beginning. But then is it the fault of the recruiter? Yes, kind of, but they didn't know better. So that could be a problem. How you will solve that problem, I don't know. So, well, so that is, so as for documenting your interviews, this is something. So I just wrote for participant 1, participant 2, participant 3. So something like this. So you have different colors. When you click on your sticky notes here, you can just choose the color you want. It's actually, this tool is a very, very easy tool to use. And like I said earlier on, this is similar to just your board or a white wall. And you just drag, you can literally just drag things in, or you could just drop it there. So that is the first step. So because in this project, in this one, I actually talked to 3 participants. So if you did up to 4 participants, the more people you talk to, the better it is, but no more than 5 though. So now, let me show you how I convert this into this that is peeping on the right. This right here, this space, is what we call, this is the affinity mapping itself. So let me show you guys what you do. So after you finish just writing down what people said, you can just put it on a line like the way I did, or you can put it vertically, anyhow you like, it's fine. That's just what I felt like doing. So after you finish doing this, just duplicate. You click on it, you click on, okay, let me back up a bit, please. Let me show you guys how to do this properly. Let me just copy all this data and do it outside so that you would get the gist of it. Oops. Okay, so I'm just selecting all the data. I've copied it. I'm coming to this plain place and I'll paste it here. So let's say this is all the stuff I documented, right? After documenting this, because all these things are like, they're just standing out here on their own. So I will just take this. We have this tool here called frame. So I click on frame and then just drag this over it. So that helps me to group this. So once I can now drag by the name. So I don't have to be worried that things are scattered. So well, something nice is I can just color my frame. Yeah. So I like neutral colors. I don't really like all these loud colors, or I just like white. Okay, so now I can just call this my interview notes. So I expect to see your board neatly arranged, very neatly arranged. Things should not be turning on your own on your board. That kind of thing is unaccepted. So have the stuff arranged like this. Use frames. You just click on it here and you draw it. So what I'll do next is I'll take this interview notes, click on the name up here, and click on Control D if you're using a Windows, or Command D if you're using a MacBook. So, and then it just copies, it duplicates it for me on the right and names it copy of interview notes. So what I'll do here is I'll just call this my insights, or no, let me call it themes and opportunities. So that's a way of titling this. So this simply means you'll get the points soon. Let me not explain it yet. Okay, now what I do is, because this is a lot of stuff, I'll just carry it out. I just selected it and carried it out. So now, in short, no, let me not do it that way. Let me just select some of it and carry it out because it's actually distracting me. Okay, so now I have some space to work with here. I can also increase the width, increase the height if I like. So what I want to do now is I want to see what sounds alike. What are the things that are similar that a participant said that is similar to what participant 2 said or participant 3 said? So let me see. So that's basically what I was doing down there. So I would see and say, okay, our assistant, this one says our assistant handles all the business cards. So I'll just drag this here. Well, okay, this one, I've not found anything similar to this, so I can leave it for the moment and just move on to the next. Okay, stores them temporarily in a pause. I drag it. So this is where the person keeps business cards. I put business cards in my wallet. So I drag this. These two are basically like where the person puts it. That's how I'm understanding this. Let me see. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else sounds? What else sounds alike? Let's see. Well, if you don't find something else, you can jump onto the next thing. You don't need to waste too much time. Okay, uses LinkedIn and phone contact to exchange this. Okay, so this is one thing. This is what the person uses. Gives our website address for more information. So this is like what I also use. So these are kind of like tools that this particular person uses, as in currently uses to carry out whatever they want to carry out. So I have these three that are similar. I have uses phone contact. I have these ones. This one is similar too. So you guys see what I'm trying to do here. I'm just literally bringing things that are talking about the same things from either from the same participants or from different participants, and I'm bringing them together. And so this is where you might spend a bit of some time on trying to find the similarities and bringing them together. But by the time you are done, you have something like this. So I spent a bit of time doing this, and then basically I just titled, I just got to a sticky note, one neutral color to write titles on all of them. So what is this whole group all about? I'll write the title. What is this whole group all about? So you just write it. There's no wrong or right way of titling your of putting titles on these sections. There's actually no wrong or right way. It's just based on you. It's something that later on when you come back in 2 weeks' time, it will still make sense to you. Or if somebody else is reading it, it will actually make sense to them. That's just the idea. Just let it make sense. So just basically do this. So this right here is what affinity mapping is about. That is, affinity means association. So association mapping, or things, similarity mapping. That's the meaning of the name. So this right here is your affinity mapping. Now, if you're going to do an empathy map, you might not, you might not do this if you don't want to do an affinity mapping. You want to do empathy map. If you want to do an empathy map, it's basically, like I said, a quadrant. You just take, let me show you if I was going to do an empathy map instead of affinity map. I can take a frame, I just draw this frame here. I change the color to white because I prefer white, and I'll title this my empathy map. And then this is actually not required of you, actually, but if you feel like, you can do it. So I click on this line. I can just draw my line across like this. And take the line again and draw it up. Oops, I didn't click on it. Okay, and what's going on? Okay, and just draw my line across, yeah. So what you do right here is after drawing your quadrants, you can now start taking things. So one quadrant could be about what the person, let me use sticky notes to just make you guys clearly get this. So just right here, feels. So what did my participants feel? What did they do? Or what do they do? What did they say? And then what was the last one? Think. So someone might be thinking, how would I know what my participant is feeling while I am doing an interview? So this is where some level of psychology comes in. This is where you have to start doing some level of deduction. So if somebody said, let me see, let me look for something somebody could have. Okay, we said something earlier on. Where was it? If one person said, it is so frustrating getting applicants. So obviously, frustration, how they are feeling. This is not just all about what the person said. This is more about how they are feeling, about the whole process. So this kind of thing here is going to be dragged under feel. So I'll have put things about feel right here, like that kind of frustrating thing. So anything about what they said, they feel, I'll put here. So things like what they do is maybe I ask questions along the line of how do you currently recruit participants, or for an applicant, how do you currently apply for jobs? So how they do it right now, I can put that here. What do they think? So how do you know what somebody thinks? This one is a little bit dicey, actually. So how you know what somebody thinks is, what are those things that you imply? So remember earlier on I said you don't have to write things as direct quotes. It could be inferences that you made. For instance, you made a conclusion based on certain things that the person said. You put that here. So those are what you think and what the participant thinks. You put them right here. Then say what are direct quotes that they said. You put them here. So that is what this empathy map is about. It's actually a wonderful way of analyzing your data, just like affinity mapping. So they're alternate. You don't have to do both of them, but it's great to do them. So what we have done right here is to cover two things. We've covered how you carry out your interviews and then how you analyze your interviews. Any questions before we go on?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go on, please.
When we are going to conduct our interview, so each of us, despite being in teams, are going to conduct 3 to 5 interviews.
Come again, please.
When we're going to conduct our interviews for this case study, each person within our team is going to conduct 3 to 5 interviews, right?
Okay, so I've been thinking about that. I want you guys to carry out this in the simplest way possible and achieve as much as possible at the same time in the little time we have. So what I have been able to come to is to say, okay, so we'll share the teams into 2, and then within a team, some people will research on recruiters, while some people will research on applicants. So I think that's how we'll do it. And then when you guys, so what we'll do is, so a group of 4 people would actually, see, this is what I want. I don't want people to do group interview. Don't sit down in a group and be interviewing people. By your own self, each person within your team will interview 3 to 5 people, but only choose, so one group would be interviewing applicants, the other group would be interviewing recruiters / business owners and so on and so forth. Yes, so that's how we'll do it to make things very easier. So when individuals will have their own board, everybody's going to have your own board. You title it title it what you want to title it. If it was applicant, you could say applicant interview notes or recruiters interview note, whatever it is. So you have that here. So does that make sense?
Yes. and that means the boards would make them together.
Come again? That means what?
After our interviews, we will now want to start putting it in the boards. The boards would be one board for the entire team.
No, 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 no. Every individual will have their own board. You as a person, for instance, right? This is, please, who is speaking? What's your name, please? I'm trying to.
Linda.
Linda. Okay, so Linda would interview, whether you choose 4 people, let me say 4. Interview, let's say you're in the group that is interviewing applicants. You interview 4 applicants and you document it. You have your own board. You write participant 1, participant 2, participant 3. This right here is your own work. This is going to form your portfolio in the end. So it is not a group work. It is individually. What makes it a group work is the fact that it's 2 things that make it a group work. Number 1 is the fact that all of you in that group are working on applicants, and all of the other people in that group are working on recruiters/business owners and all that. So that's what makes it group work. That's the first thing. The second thing that makes it group work is when you're done with the whole research, you're done with analyzing by your own self, done your teams and opportunities, that, or if you decide to do empathy map or you decide to do affinity map, when you're done with all that individually, you will now come back as a group and brainstorm on ideas, on ideation. That's brainstorm on ideas, I mean. So that is the second thing that makes it a group work. So it's actually individual work. The major thing is just the ideation. So when everybody is done, I'm assuming that what you guys could do within a group is to say, okay, we've looked at this problem. I've researched my own. Let us meet on, let's say, Thursday by 6 p.m., whatever time is everybody agrees to. And then when you agree to the time, everybody's board should be ready by that time. And then you all look at one another's board. You can share screen one by one. You guys know how you do it, or you can share your link. You can just click on share at the top here. Send links to one another so that they could have looked at it before you guys meet, so that they can note down ideas, or everybody note down your own ideas individually based on your, in short, that may even be a better thing. Based on your research you've done and your analysis and everything, you can come up with some ideas, and then you guys meet together, bring your ideas together. I want you guys to be able to learn how to work in a group, but also be independent to work alone. And the reason is because many times, especially in our climate, which is Nigeria, you'll be working alone. But there are places where in short, even as you're working alone, you also need to learn how to work in a team with other people, other designers, other developers, and all that. Have I answered your question?
Yes. And Mercy has a question in the comments.
Okay, let me read through that. Okay, just a moment. Okay, so are we going to have the same interview questions? No. You're not going to have the same interview questions. Everybody is going to have individual research plan. The research plan I showed you guys earlier on, by your own self. You do your research plan first before you go and start conducting interviews. All right, noted. Thank you. Okay, so that is it. That's actually it for what's it called? For interviews. Once you are done with that part, you can put a full stop. You can put a full stop on it. So I want to show you guys something. Okay, so we're kind of wrapping up this class. I know you guys are getting clearer on your assignment. Please feel free to ask any questions, or feel free to interrupt me.
Mrs. Grace, you said something about giving out the documents.
Yes. So yes, I'll be sharing the research plan. So 3 things you guys should hold me accountable to, just in case I don't send. I actually intend to send that immediately we're done with this session. So the first thing is I need to send you guys your case study. I'll send an email that documents the case study. Number 2, and then I'll attach the research plan and research report so that you guys can have a template to follow for your own. Yes. So is that fine? Is that fine? The person asked me a question.
Yes, that's very helpful. Yes.
All right, all right, okay. Feel free to ask any other questions. Any other questions? Well, I where is
Okay,
this? Where
ma'am,
is this?
I have a
Yes,
question.
please go
Please,
on.
will the recording be available?
Okay, so I said yes, that I'll be sharing the recording with you guys. That's also going to be yes. That's also going to be in the email I'll be sending to you guys today. It's going to be available, but I'll be pulling it down on Wednesday. Like I said, I'll be removing it on Wednesday. So if you want to watch a replay, you would have to do that before then. I actually did not want to even share the recording because I'd prefer you guys are 100% present here, body, mind, and spirit. Okay, so what I want to quickly touch on is surveys. So I won't draw very long on carrying out surveys because all of us right here we have interacted with at least one survey in our life. So we know what surveys are and we actually are familiar with that. The tool I expect you guys to use for your survey, okay, let me back up a bit. The tool that you will use for your interviews, for carrying out your interviews, could be a phone interview, either you're talking on the phone with someone. Actually prefer video sessions or a WhatsApp video or a Zoom session or whatever it is. So those are tools you would use. Then you now use Miro to document your research. That's for interview. Now, for survey, the tools you would be using, just use Google Forms. I expect you guys to use Google Forms to document your questions. Now, how do you come up with questions? So let me share the screen with you. Okay, so this same document we're looking at earlier on, we have the second part that I said you guys should ignore earlier on, that which is online surveys. So the first part, similar, actually very similar to interview. You have your background. So here, what I did for this one, like I said, I'll share this with you guys so you get an idea of this. After carrying out an extensive qualitative research, I realized a number of insights. So this means that your survey, the reason why you carry out your survey after your interview is because you want to cross-check to see that the number of the total number of people, like, okay, so you did a small search, right? A small research with 3 to 5 people, but you need to find out if somebody says something, you need to find out with a larger audience to see if other people think the same thing. That is the point of surveys. So surveys are more about numbers. It's more of a quantitative type of research than interviews that's more qualitative. So in these ones, you are okay with asking more open-ended questions. So you can ask more open-ended questions. You can ask more yes/no questions, numbers, because you need the numbers. So basically, you're carrying out surveys based on interviews. That's the point I'm trying to make. So after you've done this, where is it? After you've done this, like for this particular project, and then had this whole situation here, I would already have some things that stick out to me. If there were things that stuck out to me, I could have made a note by the side. I don't think I did that for this one. I could have made a note somewhere here and say, okay, 1 point, 1 point, 1 point. So these are a few things I want to find out, whether everybody else or whether other people are experiencing this same, this same thing. So I would then go ahead and come back to my survey. So that's basically the background, and then the research goal for this particular project was clearly written. Again, this is just about validating if a larger number of people are having the same problems. Then we have your research questions. So similar to what we did with interviews, you also have like interviews. So this is more about numbers. So you can see how wrote more about what's the percentage of business owners that did this. I was actually researching something on business cards for this particular project. Then what about if it's, okay, how many people update? So you see how I specifically wrote something. This right here was based on on results from my interview. So I realized that many people update their customers on their business cards, business contact, on their business contact right now. So I wanted to know how many people do that. How many people, how do most people do it? So it's not like as if it's not that surveys have to be completely close-ended questions. I mean, where you just say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. No, you could have a few places where they will choose options. So if you did not watch the videos that I sent yesterday, especially the ones on research, you would have to go back to them and go and watch them. So method. So here I just asked 10 questions. So I use this to ask more of close-ended questions. Like I said, I mentioned that I recruited 30 participants. I wrote my timeline. Again, you guys have very tight timelines. So scripts, I just wrote the script at the top. So this script could be something that I sent to maybe my contact on WhatsApp. I think for this project, I sent some of this to contact on WhatsApp. I put on my WhatsApp status, Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that. And that got me a number of people that filled it. So you have to come up with a nice script, something respectful, but will also help them to, that will be fun and encourage. You know how people always see surveys, so they are not really encouraged to fill surveys. So you have to let them know, oh, it's just not going to take much of your time, and you have to be telling the truth about that. You can't come and telling them to take only 1 minute or 2 minutes of their time when it's going to be taking 10 minutes of their time. Don't say that. So then you can put the link at the bottom. So I just put the link, and then I had my. Then you actually have to document your survey questions. So in your research plan, I must see this. So what I'm expecting to see, let me give you guys some idea of timeline. Today is Saturday, so I'm expecting that latest. Sorry, you guys will be working on Sundays. So latest by Monday, I'm expecting to see your research plan for the interview part, not for survey. Remember, survey is after you've done interview, so I'm not expecting you to fill this part yet, the whole survey part. For your interview part, the whole background, research goal, research questions, method, recruiting, screening questions, and your scripts with the actual interview questions, those need to be filled by Saturday and by Monday, I mean, because I need to see that. And so that latest by Tuesday, the whole of Tuesday, you'd probably be doing research. Wednesday, you'd probably be doing your analysis. And by Wednesday, I remember saying earlier on that by Wednesday is the mid of the class, you need to have submitted, I need to have seen your, what's it called? Seen your research, your interview on Miro. I need you guys to have shared your link with me. I want to have seen the analysis and you making the team. So that's by Wednesday. That has to be done. I don't know how you're going to do it, but by Wednesday, your complete interview part must be done. Because by Thursday, and by the time you're sending in your, what's it called? Sending in your interview analysis on Miro on Wednesday, I expect that you're not waiting for me to give feedback before you continue your assignment, because you need to go ahead, based on that, come up with your survey. So by Wednesday too, you should be doing this. As a matter of fact, let's even make it easier. Let me write this down. Let me just write it up here. I will delete it after. Submission for Wednesday. You should have done submission for Wednesday. Should be your. So let me first write the one for Monday. Your research plan for interviews. Now, submission for Wednesday. That one should be your, well, secondly, that's going to be the second one, your research plan for your service. But the first thing is your interview analysis on Miro. Okay. So these two things need to be submitted on Wednesday, because Again, this is left to you because by Thursday, I expect that, oh, you have sent out your surveys and would have start getting some people feeling it. Because if you need to beg people to feel it, you need to beg them to feel it. So that's why it's good I've separated this, that some people will be working on applicants while some others will be working on recruiters, business owners, and the other group of people. So that's how you guys will be able to get it done. So you don't have to be conducting 2 sets of interviews, 2 sets of surveys. So just 1 set. Okay, cool. Then basically by Saturday, I expect that by the time, in short, I would prefer your assignment be submitted Friday night, the final assignment, so that I can have some time to review before we meet on Saturday morning. And what's expected of you by that time is, let me just say, submission for Friday. So this will be your survey. So I'm going to show you guys very briefly how you quickly do your survey analysis and how you write your, then you need to do your research report. Your report needs to be completely filled out. This is on Miro. And this is all the templates I'll be showing you guys. So this is your assignment for the week actually. So let me quickly show you, I want to show you guys 2 things. One is how you do your survey analysis on Miro, and then second thing is I want to show you your research report and the templates that I'll be sharing with you guys. For surveys, you actually do not have where is it? You don't really have very much to do. So, okay, let me just go ahead to show you guys the report, and I'll show you how you come up with your survey analysis. It's right here. Let me scroll down to, where is it? So remember that survey is more about numbers. So as it is more about numbers, you would, did I not do that? Okay, yeah, this is it. So this is how you just document your survey key findings. You may not have this in your Miro, or you may just have, okay, actually I would like you guys to document everything on Miro. So on Miro, just have 1 frame. Where is that? Have 1 frame, like the way we had interview notes, just have 1 frame by the side that you just call survey notes, and just, it doesn't have to be fancy like this. You just have 1 sticky note saying something, 1 sticky note saying something. You know how Google Forms are. When you create your questions on Google Forms, and then when you're done, there's actually an analysis section. When people have answered the question, if I have some time, I'll show you guys. But if I don't show you guys that, just do a very simple research on Google Form analysis. You'll see what I'm saying. You can try get it in 2 minutes. So that's what I expect of that one. And then now this is your research report. This is the other thing I'll share with you guys. You have a title, you write your name as the UX researcher, the date. You can make your own more fancy. I just did a black and white. It could be a more beautiful Google slides than this. Have an executive summary. Have what you wanted to learn with your key research questions. How many participants? What was the major thing that you learned from them? You have a table based on what you said. So this part is more about your interview, and then you have key finding 1. So here you have like major things that you found out from the process. Maybe 3 major things that stood out. Remember that those major things that stood out are what you base your survey on later on. So those major things that stood out, just simply write it in 1 slide for me. Then if you want to break it down, you can break it down in the next slide and get a quote. You can get a quote from somebody. So this here is about documenting your research. This right here, this report is what you'll be sharing with stakeholders and all that. The Miro is for my own consumption, but this right here is what you'll be sharing with everybody. But you need a Miro to sort this data out and then go on. There will even be some interviews or some job applications you want to submit for, and it will be nice to submit your Miro link along with it so that you can understand your thought process while you're working on it. Then key finding 2. If you have 3, you put it there. Then what are the next steps or recommendations? So basically, here was where I started writing down a few, what's it called? A few ideas. I literally started writing some ideas. So here you can document your ideation here, if you like. It's good to actually document. Then your next steps, which is survey. Okay, so I want to do survey. Then okay, I want to actually do a brainstorm, which I said you guys will do with your group. So you can say you are going to do a brainstorm based on some of these ideas you've noted down. So you want to do a proper brainstorming session, something like that. Then the service key finding, I just wrote it down. And then the last thing was just the appendix where I screenshot. You can screenshot the affinity diagram or whatever interesting stuff you have from your mind and just place it here. So that is it. I think we're actually done for now. Any questions? Questions?
With creating surveys and sending them, I've actually tried it before in the past.
Okay.
I used SurveyMonkey, and I felt that since I was sending mostly to friends and family and people I know online, that it would be easy. But I actually found out that it was very difficult to get people to answer the survey. At one point, I had to beg them to trade stuff. Anything they wanted me to do, I would do for them. They should just fill in the everything. So I was very short timeline. Like, do you have any tips on actually getting people to respond faster?
Okay. Tips for getting people quickly. For one, be very mindful of people's time. Ask your questions in the easiest possible way. Another thing is, because you need your feedback ASAP, you may not wait for them to go and fill the form somewhere. If you have friends and family, you can easily just send them what's it called? You can send them the question on WhatsApp chat. You can literally, if it's face to face, you can literally print it out. Yeah, come and fill this thing. What you need in the end is your data. Anyhow you get your data, irrelevant. In as much as you get your data, get clean data. That's all that matters. So be respectful of people's time. Try to reduce your question to if it is possible for them to fill it in 1 minute, as in fill it. And then when you're talking to them, tell them, please, this won't take very much of it. In short, it's not going to take more than 1 minute of your time or 2 minutes of your time. But be sure that it's not going to take more than that of your of that time. Don't go and tell lies because you want to get them to open the link. So, or you could, in short, another way is right there on your WhatsApp status. If you are someone that, or maybe on whatever status, Facebook status, whatever, if you're someone that you have people that interact with you, just put the question 1. Oh yeah, quickly tell me what you think about this. Yes, no. Anyhow, it's just about poll. You can actually just do it. It's not that difficult. It doesn't have to be in a very, very formal SurveyMonkey or Google form kind of way. You get?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Any other questions? Any other question? Okay. Nobody else asks questions. We have very sharp people in class. That's good. Okay, that's cool. So, like I said, I'll send an email to you guys once we are done here, and we're supposed to cover a little bit of paper sketching, but we actually have done that a bit. We also covered a bit of usability testing. What I also do for that is, because I want you guys to focus on the assignment, what we'll do is to shift more of paper sketching talk to next week. Usability testing, we've actually covered a bit on that, so I won't even be focusing on that yet. So just paper sketching, it was the major thing for today that we're not able to touch properly on. And then how do you present your ideas to stakeholders? That right there could be touched on in the third week. So that's not very important right now. But one thing you should note is the reason why your assignments have to be documented the way I've told you guys to document it, is about presentation of your ideas to stakeholders. So we've kind of even touched on it. So if you note down your research plan, one reason why you need to do your research plan is if you need a budget for your research, if you had to go out and actually go and do research right in the field, you have to take transportation, you have to get people physically together and even maybe pay for their meal, or if it was like a street walk, like know how some of these things need some logistics. If you needed some funding for your research, then you need a plan to actually convince the stakeholders, the executives or whoever they may be, to actually release funds. So you need a proper research plan that will document how long the research will take, how much it's going to take. We are not even going into budgeting for our research because we are not covering that part here. But whatever it is, so that's why you need all that, so that you'll be able to properly present your ideas to stakeholders. So in short, we have even covered that already. Then the other part of it is after you're done with your research, you need to be able to clearly state it out, which is where the report I just showed you guys, that's where that comes in. The fact that you have a clear report that shows the process of what you already went through and insights you got, and then how you want to use those insights to go forward in what's it called, in your research. So the only thing we'll be pushing to next week, like I've just said, is paper sketching, which is what we'll be working on more. So any questions before we wrap up for today? Any questions? We're already rounding up for today. It's 11:30. Nobody has questions. Wonderful, wonderful. This is good.
Hello, madam.
Hi.
Please, about the interview. Can't we have a survey too? Yes, like Google form for the interview.
No, you cannot have surveys. You can't have Google Forms. So you can't have Google Forms or surveys for interview. It is called interview for a reason, and survey is called survey for a reason. Interviews are verbal, communicative, observational. So interviews are qualitative in nature. You don't carry out interviews by surveys. You see how journalists carry out interviews. Will they carry out an interview by sending you some document to fill? Definitely not. That would be a survey. So interviews are actually what it is. Interviews, like you have to talk. So no, you cannot. Any other questions?
Yes.
Okay.
You were about talking about the survey. You said you wanted to talk to us on how to come up with survey questions before you dive into timeline.
I wanted to talk about how you come up with survey questions. I think I did already.
Yes.
I did already when I showed you guys the research plan, the part of the questions itself. I did that. What do you think I wanted to say? Maybe I skipped something.
I don't really know. I'm not in your mind.
Okay, so let me just show you. I already did. I think I know what you're referring to. I did already when I showed you guys this section of this document on online surveys. So I already told you guys that surveys are solely based on your for this type of survey we are doing is based on the results of your interviews. So I already said that. I also said that you come up with, similar to what we did in interview, you come up with major questions, major things you're trying to find out with your survey before you break it down into actual questions down here. So I already said that. So I'll share this with you guys. This is on a different project, but to give you an idea of how to go about yours. Does that answer your question, sir?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Anybody else?
Just for clarity,
Yeah.
The survey reports template is also going to be sent, right?
No, it's right there. I showed you guys, man. Okay, let me show you again. Where is it? So this is the research report. Research report includes interviews and surveys. So right here, you survey key findings. Just one slide is enough for you to document, or if you want to break it down into multiple slides, you can break it down into multiple slides, and it will just be, you can say, okay, 72% of participants noted that. You get these numbers. It's not random numbers from your head, though. You know, Does anybody not know how to use Google Forms to get this kind of numbers?
When I said the report, I mean I felt we're going to like submit in this same manner from top to bottom, all the slides. Or what you just need is just this submit key findings.
No, please come again. I didn't get that.
So I was thinking where to submit the report just the way this particular form looks, this particular slide look like, this document. Sorry.
Oh, this is just a guideline. This is just a guideline. So feel free to modify this anyhow it pleases you. It's just a guideline. So you can break this down into several slides to cover your survey findings from your mind. So it's just a guideline. In short, you may decide not to use this. You can just go online and say research, UX research report, and you see a number of other ones. So it's not compulsory.
Okay.
Yes. So these are just guidelines. Okay. I was trying to ask a question. Is there anybody that doesn't know how to use Google Forms for your survey?
Yes. Yeah, madam, I don't know how to send out Google Forms.
You don't know how to do that. Okay, so let me quickly do a demo of that before we round up. Is there any other question while I'm trying to set that up? Okay, so no question. So this is what you do. You go to forms. In your URL, you just type forms.google. It's just forms.google.com. When you go there, it will open a page for you. Because I have a whole lot already, it's showing me this. If you don't have any already, you see a plus sign. You click on that and it opens a new one for you. I go ahead and I'll just name my form what I want to name it, which could be, what could it be? Anything I want to name it, I just name my form here. My description would be probably my script, which is like what I had here, this section. I could have this here, can you spare me 2 minutes of a time? Or instead I could have something that tells a little bit more about the story. Something not too long, not too bogus. You have that in your description. Then your questions. What's the first question? You type in here. Do you want to use option style? If options, yes. If not options, you can change the style here. It can be checkboxes. So this type, which are called radio buttons, the user can only choose one option, these circle types. Meanwhile, these checkboxes, they can choose multiple types. So you can change it here. Depending on the kind of question you're trying to ask, you can use. If it is an open-ended question where they will type something, you can use short answer, if it's a very short question. But if it's something that a little bit of text, maybe paragraph, you have paragraph, which is a long answer. If I don't think you'll be using file upload. I don't think you need them uploading anything. So you probably would just be using things like short answer, paragraph, multiple choice, checkboxes, and maybe drop down if you feel like. So you could have some options. I want them to click on the drop down, and then you have your options here. So let me just, because I don't want to spend too much time, let me just show you an example of one that I did. Okay, let me just show you guys the form you guys filled before you join this class. So this is a question. This was the title. I just put, okay, let me change the view so that, okay, the view is already right. So you can edit, put the name here. I can change this to write whatever title I want to write here. This is my description. I wrote it here. I wanted to collect email addresses. So I did that under settings here. So you choose collect email addresses. So under settings, so if you want, that's if you want this section of collecting email addresses, not compulsory. If you don't need people's email addresses, we don't need them to enter their email address. If you want to upload image, you can upload an image. If you have something fancy you want to upload, you have it on the right hand side popping up. You just click add image. It will bring up this beautiful dialogue. You upload it and then to show you. That's one. Then your questions. You have your questions here, have your questions there. So these ones were short answers. I wanted short answers from you guys. Then I wanted a long answer from you. So if, for this kind of question, I want to explain from this message extension. So let's say I wanted it to be a checkbox. I wanted people to be able to enter multiple things. I would say guidance, maybe guidance. Create my portfolio. Let's say somebody else, oh, get a job. So if I wanted people to be able to choose more than one option, I'll use these checkboxes. But if I wanted people to be able to choose just one option, I'll use multiple choice. Then it's only one they'll be able to choose. Then you can add order when you're creating. So this order is basically to show order. Then it will show them a text field at the bottom where they can type whatever it is that they want to type. So that's it. Then if you have questions that you want people to compulsorily answer, you just click here, required. So if it is like this, that means it's not required. If you click on it, then it is required. Then so it will show there's a beautiful red asterisk by the side of it to show that it's a compulsory question. This one wasn't a compulsory question, so it's not showing the red sign. So that's just it. Now, this is how you ask your questions. Now, when you're done getting your data, you have your responses here. So if responses right here, you have your data and then you have people's information here. And then for things that have numbers, so let's say people enter this a whole lot of data, and then you have this now. So you can get, well, this was something I just added right now. So there's no sensible data here. let's say this was an actual option. These were actual options. Okay. Let me see. Okay, these people actually filled this as text. So if those were actually drop check boxes that I asked, then I would have had proper data here, but I don't have any proper data. So it will show me 10% or 20%. So you see when I put my mouse over, it's saying 1.4%. Well, obviously because it's not proper. So if there were just 4 options, I probably have 20%, 30%. So that's where right here in your in your reports, you can be able to say 70 something percent, 20%. So you get those data from this. So what 30% of people answered a particular question in a certain way. Is that clear now, Mr. Deji?
Yes, madam. Thank you.
Okay. So we have come to the end of this class. I don't believe anybody else has any question. If you do, feel free to send an email, or if other people can benefit from it, just drop it on the WhatsApp group. Like I've said already, I'll be sharing the video recording. I'll be sending you guys an email with detailing the case study, send you the templates, and then maybe I'll note down the assignments that I've given you guys. Anything else for anybody to say? Anything at all? Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Man, this is a very rich class. So packed full.
Wonderful.
I'm so impressed. The first class is so rich. I have a lot to read now. To read more and really break down.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your sacrifice.
I am glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Mr. Femi.
Thank you.
Okay, that's cool. So nobody asked questions or such. I'm glad. Okay, so please, guys, I need to iterate this. It's very important. Your assignments are compulsory, like very, very compulsory. You need to submit what you need to submit on Monday. You need to submit what you need to submit on Wednesday. And on Friday, when you need to submit the rest, you need to submit it. If you have any questions, please feel free to just drop your questions either in the WhatsApp group or by email, and I would get to it ASAP. Now, as per when I'll be able to respond to your questions, I want to set a time, 1 hour per day, that we can have a chat session, so that it's not a situation of you drop question and you're like, oh, she did not answer till forever. So try to have your questions together at about let me see, between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. every day. I would make sure that I'm available on WhatsApp, especially on WhatsApp, to respond to questions. So I actually prefer if you ask the questions there, because somebody else can benefit from it. So on the WhatsApp group, please, let's try not to send me private messages on WhatsApp, because the same question you're asking me, somebody else is probably thinking the same thing, and then I have to answer the same question so many times. So please, let's try to keep it in one place. So that's it. Thank you so much for attending my class. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being participative. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Bye, Grace. Bye.
Bye.